the worst countdown that included multiple threes, at least 7 ones. We are live for episode 462 of the Trinity Force podcast.
God, it's been that many episodes?
Yeah, you've
Yes,
been
it has,
gone for
Shira.
about 100 episodes, I think. It's been about a year since we've seen you.
No.
Does that make that makes sense?
I was here like 2 weeks ago. Maybe a week ago. It was a week ago. How dare you?
I've been good at rallying the troops when we're getting low.
Yeah, we've we've had an interesting set of weeks. Chira just finished his calculus final after an all-night, not study session, but staying up session.
Not sleeping session. That was great.
And then another no sleep kind of situation is probably going on for Adam with his newborn. So he is off the podcast for a little bit. Might have him. He's been kind of hinting that he might be able to come on, which I think is kind of a little bit child dependent, which is kind of out of our control. But hopefully he will be back on soon. So if you want to send some well wishes, hit him up on Twitter, etc. Because I'm sure he would love to think about other things that aren't a crying baby.
How dare you? He loves thinking about his baby, and there's nothing else that he would rather think about than that beautiful, beautiful baby girl.
He seemed in really high spirits when we were chatting with him the other day.
Yeah, especially when he
goes
goes upstairs. He's like, I got to make a bottle, and then is immediately coming downstairs as giddy as can be, saying, haha, I'm not on bottle duty at the moment. So
it's pretty adorable.
Our heroic leader at work.
So this episode is continuing a untitled series of kind of episodes to prepare you for the end of the season push, trying to get you in the right mindset for that. We don't really have a whole lot to cover in terms of patches. If you've listened to the past couple episodes, we've covered that fact because we're coming up on Worlds. So things are going to be kind of stagnant in the patch phase, but we are trying to get you guys motivated towards what you want to get for the end of the season. I just finished my first 10 placement games, 90% of the way through the season.
You did it.
I did it and got gold because, thank God.
Because you did it.
Because I did it. Because I went 3 and 7 and got gold. So that's really a lot of work on my part. So I might start that push soon if I'm feeling like trying to get higher. Chira, did you want to talk about your ideas on pushes? Because it seemed like you had some very passionate ideas before the podcast.
I don't want to necessarily say passionate. Might be unpopular ideas. I don't know. We'll figure that out in a second. So this was a legitimate shower thought. I'm in the shower. This is probably like a week and a half ago.
Hey, set the scene a bit more for us.
Confirmed.
I'm using my Garnier Fructis shampoo and conditioner because I fucking take care of my hair. And I'm sitting there and I'm washing my hair and I'm thinking, there are so many people that I have talked to over the past however many years we've been doing a show, forever for some of us. And it was one of those thoughts where we've talked a lot about what people want out of the game, where if they're looking to grind rank, if there's a specific rank that they want, if whatever it is you want. And with the end of the season fast approaching, I was sitting here and I was thinking the best advice I could probably give anybody right now for any of those bronze players that are trying to hit gold, silver players that want to get the plat, gold players that are making their push to platinum, whatever for whatever rank that's higher, whatever tier of rank that's higher. Stop focusing on the color of the rank and just look to hit the next level of rank above the one that you're currently in. This is the whole idea of setting realistic goals and realistic expectations to the point where instead of, let's say you're silver and you want to hit, let's not even go to plat. Let's just say you're silver and you want to hit gold. If you're in silver 5 and you're making a rush for gold and you're on a losing streak, and let's say you make it up to silver 4 and then you lose a couple games and you get back demoted down to silver 5, that is going to be much more frustrating for you. And it's going to kill a lot of your motivation to continue grinding, rather than if you just reframe how you're thinking about things and try and hit the next rank in succession. Let's go and focus more on getting to that next rung in the ladder and using those pushes, like that ladder climb itself as, a boost to confidence where, hey, if you get this rank, you're on a roll and you can get to the next one, rather than, hey, I'm sitting here in ELO limbo, rank limbo, because I'm going up and down, rank to rank, whatever. I'm not going to get to what I want, because in putting that spot, that destination that's maybe farther away for some than others, it can get really, really frustrating if you don't see any actual movement in that direction. And this puts like an actual, I guess, a piece on the board that you can see and actually obtain, that's something that you can quickly obtain if you get on a lucky streak.
Well, and the funny part is that everything you just said was basically their intent behind going to the division and MMR system that we had right now. I'm sure everybody on the show can remember. I don't know how many of our listeners can remember. It used to be just an ELO system that was a flat number. It gave you your number, and that was where you ranked relative to everything else that was going on.
And you didn't even know where you were going to end up depending on what that number was.
You know, once things got going, you learned whether or not that number you had been assigned was high or low. But like you really didn't know what that meant within the scope of things. And so changing it to the system, which we've had since what, season 3 now?
Correct, because that's when I started.
Yeah, you know, we've had this for a really long time. The whole idea behind it was so that you could feel the gratification of the incremental progression, as opposed to just like, okay, well, here I am, and I'm gonna play, and we're gonna see what happens.
I think there's a level, like there's a lot that's lost even with I like the incremental progression, just because it provides like something visual that you can see that's like, okay, I'm improving, or hey, I did something, like there's forward progress. But when it comes down to especially these late season pushes, you get so worried about getting to that next tier, you don't focus on that thing directly in front of you, and that's like winning the game that you're in, rather than thinking about winning the 40 games that you're going to have to win to get there.
That was definitely me last year at the end of the season. And it did not help that within like the last week, I think it was like the last weekend before ranked closed, my computer broke down. Ooh. And I was in just a panic, because I was trying to, you know, like I was pushing for a specific goal, and I was 2 divisions away, and it was just like not there, and I was really, really worrying and freaking out about the whole thing. And like I put a lot of extra stress on myself instead of worrying about like just getting where I needed to be.
For sure, yeah. I mean, that's where I've been at right now, is because I just got back in the Plat 1, and it's like, all right, let's take it easy. Let's not worry about it too much. I got like 2 months left to get Diamond. I'll get there. It's just little steps. It's not like, man, I'm going to hit Masters this season for sure.
You have the benefit, though, of experience in being a certain rank before, too, and that also takes a lot of the pressure off, where, like, it was the same thing with starting rank this season. Like, I bullshitted my way into Platinum, not giving a fuck at all about anything. Yeah, for the past 2 seasons, and it's because, like, once you get to that rank, it's just like, okay, you've been there. Like, it's a matter of time before you get there again. You just have to put the time in. And for some people, especially like people that might be on the lower level of rank, so like bronze players or something like that, like if you end up getting into silver, that's a big jump from the bottom of the pool. You know what I mean? Like that, any increment that you go up is significant, because again, it's forward progress. It's you can actually judge how much improvement you're making. And I think it's important to not only, like, again, set better expectations for yourself, but also, like, yo, pat yourself on the back if you fucking rank up.
Right. Like, don't be super hard on yourself for, like, not getting there as fast as you thought you were going to get there.
If it took you 20 games to grind from you know, Silver 5 to Silver 4, like, you made it from Silver 5 to Silver 4. Cool, you didn't get placed in gold like Mitch did off a fucking 3-win, 7-loss placement.
Like a fucking trash child.
He's also been in Platinum for, like, what, the past 3 seasons? So, like, of course his...
No, he decayed out last season.
Well, my MMR was still up there.
But he made it.
That's what helped it.
So, I mean, like, if that's the case, I mean, again, you've been there before. It's the pressure's off for you. The pressure's off for me, unless I wanted absolutely to get the diamond. But, like, I know where I'm at gaming-wise right now. You haven't seen me on the show much in a while because I've been really, really busy with life stuff. And I'm not going to put this crazy expectation on myself to grind to diamond when there's a lot of other stuff that's going on.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, one thing that I I think is very important, and I think speaks to the not the opposite side of Chira's points, because like you need to do well in those 40 games. It's also like look at the next game, like just get in the mindset of this is the next game I need to win, and not worry about like you don't need to think about, oh, I've got this many more games to win and this one's going poorly. Like just try to win that one. Like you might as well. There's not really if you've gotten into the game and haven't dodged, because that's your one chance to like say, all right, I'll take that little LP decay. Like you might as well try to win it, unless it's like so depressing that that the time spent there will put you into a dark place because you're 0-12 and
well, that and no matter what happens, like win or lose, that game is on the books. You can't change the outcome.
You can't change something that's already happened.
Getting bent out of shape, like it's not going to do you any good. You know, it's good to use the momentum of winning a game, obviously, but even then, like don't get overconfident just because you won a game or you ground out like a tough game and you know grasp victory from the jaws of defeat or something. But it's on the books. It doesn't really matter. It's not going to influence the rest of your games going forward.
It's always eyes up next game, and you don't look back. Like, okay, cool, you can look back and review what happened and see what you could have done better, but don't dwell on it.
Especially this late in the season, you don't have time to look back.
Yeah, I actually just thought of a point that completely contradicts what I just said in terms of if the game no, because this will make sense in a second.
I would like to listen to you argue with yourself for the next 15 minutes. This is gonna be great.
Go for it, Mitch.
No, don't worry. It's very quick. It involves way too much drinking. So I did have a game over the weekend where I decided to play ranked, very very drunk. When I was I had just hit gold 5 with 0 LP, and so I was like, well, I don't have a whole lot to lose here, and played a game. I got dumpstered in lane pretty bad because I played a champion for the second time ever. So this is like all the recipes of like the worst decision making you can ever have.
Was I in this game?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
I hope no one else I know was in this game. I'll check, but I really hope not. But you'll know in a second if you were, because this part's pretty important. As our Nexus was getting destroyed because we definitely had lost the game, the other team surrendered. For no reason at all, decided to surrender. You can check my match history, and I have a nice little 4-11-2 game that I won, despite
10-2.
Oh, so 4-10-2 with all of our people being down about 4K gold apiece from their lane opponents, and they just like in post game chat, they were just like, "You guys deserve it more than us," and I was like, I have no idea.
I deserve. So
nothing. I am now 4-7 in solo queue on the season. For no fucking apparent reason. So sometimes miracles come true, especially when you're just
Hey, you don't look a gift enemy surrender in the mouth. Okay?
Right.
Exactly.
Now to note here, Mitch is doing two things we don't recommend. A, playing drunk. B, first timing Malzahar in ranked.
It was second time. Oh, okay.
I was there for the first time.
Yeah, and I won that game. I didn't.
You did not win that game. We won that game.
Was that your Mundo game?
I think might have been the Mundo pop off. No, I don't think so.
It wasn't. No, it was a different one.
Different game.
Oh no, yeah, I was Jen.
Oh, that was the one I was bitching the entire game.
Yeah, you were complaining the entire time, and I was just like, I'm not surrendering this. We're not giving up.
I don't even remember what I played that game. Was I top lane? Was I Camille? I might have been Camille or something.
All right, well, let's move on a little bit. So we've had this weekly challenge for a little bit, which no one edited, even though you might be able to see that it might look a little bit weird. It says on there, every time you last hit a minion, check your mini map. What somebody, as a joke, definitely not me, did is said every time you last hit a minion, take a drink. So if you wanna get free surrenders from the enemy team, maybe follow.
This is terrible advice. Don't do that.
The first one though is actually a pretty good challenge. So Dom, you want to talk about this challenge? Because I think it's actually a pretty good idea.
Adam came up with it. He made a whole list of them, and he wanted us to ship them out while he's out here. But the basic idea is that a lot of people have really poor map awareness, and you need to train yourself to look at the mini map. And because CSing is one of those things that you are just habitually doing every single game for at least the first part of it, if you train yourself to look at the mini map every single time that you last hit a minion, you are eventually just going to develop the habit of glancing over at the mini map for the relevant pieces of information that you need. Obviously, looking at the mini map is good, but looking at the mini map and processing the information is kind of the key part. Your mileage is going to vary, and I highly recommend you really, pay attention to what's going on there. But just developing the habit is a good first step.
Right. I know I've talked about this before, like 20 episodes ago or something. But if you ever watch a high elo streamer that has a face cam, most of the times you'll see their eyes move around on the outside of the screen because they're never looking at the middle of the map, because the CSing to them is mechanical at that point. They're checking all their peripherals all the time, and that's how they know when they can roam or when they're getting ganked. They're always checking their mini map. It's things like that that'll get you those little extra steps ahead of the other opponent.
It reminds me of Halo players. I think it was Halo 2 or 3. It was these people who would spin their gun around in a circle just to kind of get a quick glimpse of everything around them. Which I mean makes a lot of sense in both criteria. Just trying to get as much information as possible. Just to, even if you get barely a glimpse of somebody, you might as well. That's information to process when you don't need to worry about CSing like some of us.
Actually, that reminds me of why I even do an okay job looking at the minimap. Way back when Halo 3 came out, I had been playing online and doing, okay. My roommate at the time was watching, and just one day out of nowhere, he goes, "You will be so much you will be so good at this game when you actually realize how to look at the radar in the corner." And I was like, oh, you're right. I need to work on that. And then going forward, it's oh, okay, yeah, pay attention to the other pieces of info out there. What's right in front of you is not always the most important thing.
Yeah, my shooter background was in COD, and I always played hardcore, so their mini-maps didn't exist. It was one of those, all right, I have this memorized. I hope there's somebody around this corner.
Run and gun, baby.
Yep, run and gun.
I never played that. My shooter career more or less ended with Left 4 Dead 2. No, I was never that into shooters to begin with, but Left 4 Dead and Left 4 Dead 2 were a very, very different experience, so that was something I could get into.
And now we just play MOBAs and mobile games.
I love them. They're great.
What do we got next?
Public service announcements.
Oh,
let's get some PSAs out here.
Yeah.
I don't know who made these. I figured
I did. I guess. So I was perusing Reddit over the weekend, and there was one of those PSA to from your jungler. And stuff was going on and everything. But then I thought I'm actually, there are some good tidbits that we could pass off to people, because it's really easy to get hung up playing the game and thinking that your teammate is trying to leave you hanging. And this is going to be the most corporate speaking thing I ever say, but ultimately you should assume, don't assume that your teammates are actively trying to hurt you. There are going to be cases where it's very apparent that that's the case, but more often than not, it's more likely that your teammate was trying to do something that was beneficial to the team, and it just didn't work out, or it wasn't jiving with what you were trying to do, and that's why things went awry.
If Red Dragon's up and your jungler's not ganking for you top lane, there's a reason for that.
So just reading through some of the, I was kind of trying to think of some specific things people tend to really get hung up on, and they will start blaming their teammates and lashing out about stuff. And I'm just trying to, give us a chance to clear the air and probably give everybody an opportunity or another to go on some type of rant. But for example, it is to the laners from junglers. It's not the jungler's job to win your lane for you. That's on you.
Hey, Adam, do you hear that? It's not my job to come gank for you. Because that's all I ever hear when we play.
It's so funny, because I've had to deal with this for the past 3 seasons of him bitching at me nonstop because he played with me a lot, but I've been playing so much top lately that I never hear it ever.
Yeah, I usually get slotted in jungle now when we play fives or whatever, and it's no, I'm just not ganking your lane out of spite at this point.
Well, it's not like he's gonna do anything with it if I do come down there anyway. So.
What did I do to you? What did I do to you?
No, this is why you just abandon that and we go roam mid. we four-man mid, and he can play Jhin in his side lane or whatever.
You will hear a lot of people they'll get ganked once or twice, and then they will start to rage in chat, or they will complain on comms or anything like that. And the reality is that if you are getting camped, it is because the opponent jungler has figured out where their food is. And if you know where your food is, that's where you're always going to go eat.
There is a massive amount of power in being able to draw the jungler to your lane in order to control the quadrant of the map that you're existing on and to get them to come there. But you lose all of that if you die to that person. And if you die to them, if you're dying more than once, you're just not paying attention.
It's on you. Ward better.
Now, to be
Stop
fair,
trading the way you have been.
I will argue this from the laner's point of view, because if I, for whatever reason, I get pushed up and I get ganked early and I die, if I TP back to lane and that wave's crashing in, I should at least hope my jungler's paying attention, because there's a very good chance I'm going to get dove. And if
That's
that happens,
not the type of circumstance that we're talking about here.
Sure.
We're talking the people who keep fighting basically right in the middle of the lane, or they keep pushing the wave to the opponent tower, and they're just not throwing wards down. They're not paying attention. You know, a lot of different circumstances. The type of thing you're describing is like a really niche case scenario, and also something like yeah, I mean it's also something where the opponents probably coordinated really well to turn around and get something additional out of that.
Well, this comes down to awareness and more than just paying attention to what's going on a mini map or warding as well. This is also something as what might seem as insignificant to some people, that hey, you got to kill top by blowing flash and killing somebody as they were backing off to the turret. They come back to lane. Let's say they teleport right back. You go back, you buy something and teleport back. Your flash is no longer up. If the enemy jungler knows that, he can just come up there and kill you if you're not playing somebody who's mobile. So you just took something that was a benefit for you in that lane, and you weren't paying attention to the fact that, hey, you don't have that escape ability that you previously had. And yes, you have that extra kill, so you should be able to go and pretty much stomp whoever you're playing against, depending on what the matchup is. But one person isn't always fighting off two. And in most cases, especially in early game, if that jungler shows up, even if you hard commit to a fight, not having something to dip out or not being able to finish somebody really quickly in order to go back and fight the jungler one-on-one, it's not good. And if you die, again, that's on you.
Now, I guess to the junglers from the laners, here goes on the other side. If somebody does end up feeding, you know, or because they're getting ganked all the time and everything, you don't get to bitch out that person. Their jungler made a concerted effort to keep that person down, and like you made a decision to never go up there and sort of support the person that was being, you know, having a hard time and everything. And that's okay. You had your reasons for doing so, but you kind of left your teammate in the weeds there. You don't get to bitch at them for the rest of the game. For, you know, decisions that you ultimately did have a say in. So something that I want to backtrack a little bit, but I mean this is about communication between junglers and laners, regardless of what which part we're on. But something that I've noticed in my recent games and kind of just getting back into the game or playing more frequently in general is the number of times that a laner will say, well, never say anything about like, hey, we've been pushed up or we've been pushed into all game, like come down here, because some people don't have map awareness. Like some junglers, probably in lower elo, aren't going to be paying as much attention to where the waves are.
Some pick
and then they
complain,
and then they complain about the fact that the enemy jungler has always been bot without realizing, oh, he's our jungler has been top or has been like he's way ahead in CS or something. But like they don't ask for it until it's too late and then complain about the fact that their jungler didn't do anything. And that, I know a lot of people play on the I'm a mute everybody and never talk to anyone idea, and that's fine if you want to do that. There is so much, I find so much power in communication, especially when it's asked in a constructive and productive way and not in a where the fuck are you? Please come down here.
There's something on the flip side of this too, and again, this is just from playing top lane a lot this season. If you're top lane and you've died twice, and your jungler is actually like doing stuff in other places, the first thing that I do if I'm behind like that, and I know like the only real reprisal I'll have is just sitting back and trying my hardest to not die and to not get dove and warding out my try or something like that to make sure that somebody doesn't kill me. It's, hey, jungler, I'm pretty fucked up here. Just go do something somewhere else. Like, forget about me. I will struggle through like the proud soldier that I am, trying to make this work. But like, I'm dead weight. Please make it up somewhere else.
And see, when I have that type of I guess teammate, somebody who just had a really difficult time laning and everything. If we're still in the game, and hopefully we are, but assuming we're still in the game and everything, I try to say something. It's like, hey, I know you had a really, really tough time up there. Good job just keeping it together. Just grind it out and everything. You're gonna get back in this game, and like we've got this and everything. I know you probably are feeling really, really bad, but there's light at the end of the tunnel here. We got this. Just thanks for sticking it out.
I've heard that too many times from you in voice comms.
Right.
Well, you
Said to
have
me.
rough laning.
You have
Yeah.
rough laning.
That's called getting back into the game.
It's your
It's my weakness. It's
yeah.
100% my weakness.
You're great at roaming. You're just bad at dealing with the 1v1.
You're bad at doing everything else out of mid lane.
Damn it. I don't
Just
know.
get
I
better,
fucking
man.
mid lane.
Just,
All right.
just stop sucking. Come on.
God.
But yeah, that communication is just like, and what you're saying there, Cheer, not only tells the jungler that, it tells the rest of the team that, and inherently, it can only make them rage less at you. It's not
Right,
going to
I mean,
make
you're
them mad
taking-
for talking to you. Like,
You're
you're saying-
diffusing the situation.
Yeah, it's such a that's gonna be my thing for all time. It's just like probably every 3 episodes, it's gonna be like talking to people and taking accountability.
You do a really good
for your
job of that.
mistakes.
You do a really
It's
good job of
important.
taking accountability and also just like I don't know, providing some like sort of
Context to what happened, as opposed to
not-
like
not
people
even
don't
that, like
see
you're
something.
really good at smoothing things out and everything. You take ownership, but then you also try to like almost play a mediator or that type of thing, and just sort of keep the team together when things might be falling apart.
Because that's the only chance you have sometimes.
Yeah, no,
Because like
I
that
feel
game, the
ya.
game we were just talking about earlier, the game we were talking about where we were getting crushed. We were pretty much ready to surrender, and then Santana Dom, I think, was cheering that game too. Like, we came back and like made a crazy good comeback. You
No,
were
I
playing
think it
Camille.
was just
Cheer.
us
No, it's
three.
it was the 3 of us. It was the 3 of us.
Yeah, you were.
it was really good.
Forever.
Yeah, it was so
and
good.
see, like I just shut up and I try to grind it out. I narrow my eyes, square my shoulders, do all that type of stuff and everything. It's like I'm not losing this game, or I'm not going, like I'm going down swinging. Like I'm not going to make this easy for them.
If anyone
And-
caught my stream, I forget when it was, but it was a rough day of me just inting really hard and then winning games. Like it was just,
Oh, poor you.
I know, right? It's just like going 0-3 in
Oh.
lane and then just playing the games out, because eventually I had a game a couple days ago where their Master Yi was like 10-0-8 or something at one point, and eventually we won that because he just kept splitting. We killed him in the side lane, would take Baron, and then just push the rest of the map.
Dom and I were in a game yesterday where I went 1-5 in lane as Yorick, and then got
Yeah.
one good fight
Mhm.
and came out of that fight
Yeah.
5 kills, 6 deaths, and
Mhm.
everything was fine. Equilibrium has been achieved.
I understand the attitude of people who like want to surrender as early possible. You're just like saying, all right, time to move on to the next one and everything. It's about quantity, not necessarily quality. But we all need to acknowledge that that's what the opponent team wants. They
Yeah.
want you to surrender because then they are getting the win and everything. And the longer you hold on to a game and keep playing things out, the more likely it is that they, could make I mean, it increases the possibility that they could make a
Desperation.
mistake and actually the game, lose what was a winnable game.
Right.
Desperation breeds innovation, and it's one of those, having the resolve to stick something out and seeing if you can make something work might be able to give you big enough to hint to be like, oh hey, this game isn't like, if you're in a winning game that isn't that behind, you can use things that you develop in losing games in order to snowball winning games harder so that you in turn win faster.
Right. I mean, for the majority of our listeners who are gold and below, people just do stupid shit all the time and throw games for no
dude,
reason.
it's mid plat and below at least.
I'm just generalizing, but yeah,
I mean,
like
if
every elo does stupid shit, but like it just happens more the lower you go because people don't know how to push leads, or they incorrectly push leads.
even if you're losing the entire game up to the like 46 47 minute mark, even sometimes before that, depending on what your team comp is or whatever, one messed up fight, the enemy goes for Baron at the wrong time, and you just have a really good quirky package into something else, and you end up sweeping them up right at Baron, that ends games. You can immediately go, and depending what the game's like there's been so many times I don't know. I don't think it's this season specific, but I felt like I've seen it a lot this season where games seem like they're pretty much in the bag, and then everybody gets fucking cocky. Somebody does one thing and ends up getting caught out. The rest of the team is pretty fed and thinks they're strong enough to win a 4v5, ends up failing that, and then the enemy team just pushes through to win. And you're sitting here like, what the fuck just happened?
Right.
We were winning for the past half hour. Like this was its own waste of time.
This was a free game, and we threw it away. Boy,
Right.
have I seen that a lot.
Yeah.
Another note I have in here is that it is okay, laners, if junglers take your CS in lane. There's a lot of strategic advantage to a jungler pushing the lane to get it to crash on a tower if you had to drive the enemy back. That denies opponent experience and everything. It's really not affecting you because you are not there anyway. There are going to be players who don't understand how to do the wave control perfectly. If you are in that MMR, odds are good that that's also not going to really ruin your laning phase one way or the other. But don't get bent out of shape if the jungler pushes your wave. It's not that big of a deal.
The amount of times I've had to explain as a jungler, hey, I'm shoving so this bounces, or I've had to explain to my jungler to stay to help me push because I'm like out of mana or something. Like, hey, I need to push this.
Or we
I'm
just got a kill and I'd like to shove this giant ass wave back that it crashes and I can force the teleport and walk back the lane to have teleport up to take dragon.
Or like
in 2
they
minutes.
don't have teleport right now. They lose a wave and a half of XP. This lane should be over. And the amount of times like I have to explain this, it's guys, understand, junglers are not trying to fuck you over for the most part. They're just trying to help you in ways you probably didn't think of.
And I guess on the other side, or alongside that, like laners, think twice before you start taking jungle camps and everything, because you could end up doing some serious damage to your jungler by taking one of those non-buff camps.
You put them half a level behind.
Yeah, I know it just seems like a little bit of gold going into you, and you're not really thinking twice about it and everything, but it can make a huge difference for the junglers. It's one thing if they're on the other side of the map and stuff is going on down there, and it's like going to have respawn or going to be respawning pretty much around the time that they show up. It's another if you're just feeling greedy and you don't have anything else to do. Like don't just go take raptors because you can.
It's different if you're in the mid game and a bunch of turrets are down and you're just taking anything that you can get. But like if your lane is still up and you can go farm that CS, don't fuck with your team's jungle camps if he or she is actively clearing them.
Yeah, there's a difference between like whereas everyone gets the same gold off of minions, unless you're Twisted Fate,
or Gangplank.
Or Gangplank, I suppose. From lane minions at least, the junglers do get an experience boost from killing large jungle monsters. Like that is one of the main reasons why it's very good for them, because they get those. That is something they get inherently better than you. It's maybe not a ton, but think about how much that adds up when like just CS differences can make the difference in games sometimes.
It's super matchup dependent for me, but a lot of the times lately I've been taking both Wraith camps as mid lane, just because I'm like, well, I'm playing Orianna or I'm playing Twisted Fate.
Wait, definitely
might as well. But yeah, don't screw your junglers over either. Even if I do it a lot, don't take my bad actions and take them as gospel.
But at the same time, the jungler that is having his camp robbed from you is probably in your games also actively being like, well, I need money from someplace, so I'm gonna take some from you.
Not if I clear the wave in 1W.
So I think that this, like, the final point of this is kind of relevant, even though we've only cleared the first one of these 4, where it says, understand what kind of champion your laners have. Late game scalers need every piece of gold they can get their hands on. Don't hang around and snag a few CS just because you're greedy. You're hurting someone else in the long run. And that's, I think that I think ties into that pretty well, because if you have and that says it all. I don't actually know why I need to even elaborate, because if unless you don't know what kind of champions need gold later, like I don't know what to tell you on that.
There are champions out there that need to hit gold thresholds in order to hit critical mass.
In that
a lot of them are top laners.
A lot of them are 80 carries.
Corki Trinity Force is a great example of that. That one that changes his entire gameplay. like to it boosts it to such a crazy level for one item than most other people do for one item.
Yeah.
Like that's just gigantic.
On the flip side of that, God, we've had a lot of flip sides this episode, guys. I don't know what's happening.
We're all topsy-turvy.
On the flip side of that, if you're also doing extremely well and there's somebody on your team that is dead weight and they don't know it, but they might get really, really tilted if you take their stuff, only take a couple of their things and leave the rest so that, you know, they feel like they get something out of it, even though you probably took the entire back wave with a Swain Q because you didn't, or a Swain QW, and you didn't give a fuck, and you take all the money from the AD carry because you're 8-2 and you don't care. But that's very, very situation specific, and you need to know where your champion's strengths and weaknesses lie.
Doesn't sound like anything you've ever done.
I do it all
In
the
the last
time.
couple
I do
days.
it all the time.
It's so easy on Swain too. I've played a
it's great.
decent chunk of him this season. It's just like, well, I just W the backline and it's dead. Great, I can move on.
See, these are things I had to think really hard about because I don't play the types of roles where this has an impact. Like, I'm just grateful for any little bit of gold that I get, and I know not a lot's coming my way. So
Well,
I'm just
now
like,
you
okay,
get to
yeah,
play
well,
Janna
whatever.
with coin, and you end up outpacing junglers in money at this point because
I
of that
will-
broken item.
There are going from I guess a laner perspective to seeing supports play. There are times in games because I'm constantly checking what like the relative levels of my teammates are compared to the enemy team, and it's one of those. If you notice, like, say everybody on the enemy team's level 10 or 11, and your support's level 9, and there's a big wave coming up, and you can clear it easily, and your support has been spending a lot of time warding and trying to keep up, you know, map presence and other things like that in order to like keep facilitating things. I have found it very helpful to be like, hey, Janna, hey, Braum, hey, whoever the fuck is supporting, yo, come here real quick. Like, just come
Like,
over here to get this free thing that you desperately need, because it would be amazing to have a second level ult the next time we have to team fight.
And it's wonderful when I have teammates that are actually cognizant of the level disparity. Doesn't happen often, and I don't get like bent out of shape out of it or anything. But
I mean,
I do love it when people acknowledge that and are like, "Hey, come here, just leech off this experience."
I've seen plenty of times where like somebody will be playing Alistair or something that can roam pretty well, and they've been helping people, like they've been helping middle pick up kills, or they've been, you know, assisting with the jungler during invades, and they've been losing out on a lot of XP because of it, and they're pretty behind in levels because of it, and they've been doing a lot for their team, but it doesn't necessarily like. They've been increasing the power of their team for the loss of power on themselves, and this just helps level that out to the point where it never gets to a situation where they are fundamentally useless in the 5v5, because most games end up with big 5v5s, unless like you're just running a pick comp and you're pink warding really, really well, and you're sitting there picking people off left and right. And this is especially true for games under Platinum. Like there is going to be a point where most games end up at an ARAM at some point in middle.
Yep, because people don't know how to manage waves.
But they were even observing that in pro play over the weekend. A couple of games I caught, they're like, games just kind of get to a point where it seems like everybody's going down mid.
And it's, again, the lower tier teams. Also, it's kind of the meta right now.
A lot of tanks tends to influence that just because they're team fighters by nature.
Yeah, you don't have sideline pressure with a split pusher, and yeah, it's just like it's death ball comps essentially with like Sivir, Maokai, and all the rest of the fun tanks in this meta. Woo!
Why don't we
want to get to some questions?
Should we move on to listener questions here?
Yeah, we can start with some questions. Phil writes, what do you guys think about Yorick? I never hear anyone else's opinion about him because he's not a meta champ. Do you think he could come into the meta anytime soon? Yorick.
Sean. I love him. I just love him. I love Yorick. I think Yorick's really good right now too with all of the tanks. And this isn't going to be, well, yes, of course he is, because he has an ult that he can drop in lane and then leave to go and help people, and you can split push without actually having to be there to split push. For those of you that play Yorick and don't know this is going to be great for you. And for those of you who don't play Yorick, Maiden is amazing in team fights, especially when there's a lot of tanks around. You do percentage health damage on hits that's like at level, I think at rank 3 ult, it's like 7.5% max health damage every time that you hit them, and that's when your little slave minions are smacking shit too.
10%.
It's 10%. Yeah. So I mean, you can shred tanks. We were in a game yesterday where I was playing into a Nasus. Well, that was a Nasus, right? Yeah, that was a Nasus because he was chasing people down left and right. And Dom and I had these beautiful combos of him knocking up somebody and then me walling him in, or me walling somebody in and him knocking him up, and it was just left and right. It didn't matter how tanky Nasus was or what his ult did. I shredded that bitch with Maiden like it was nothing. And we see a Nasus left and right now. I think Yorick and Nasus are really, really similar to me, except Yorick brings more
utility,
upfront utility. Like, whereas Nasus is like, fuck it, I'm gonna walk at you and two-shot your ass. Yorick can still two-shot your ass with a...
Nasus is the type of champion that like has to hit critical mass.
Yeah.
Like, and he needs a certain amount of time in order to be able to like be that terrifying threat.
Yeah, to walk through your entire team and smack your carries in the face.
I think Yorick kind of falls into the same class right now as Nasus, and that he's this niche anti-tank pick in the top lane,
yes,
especially for the meta. He does. I remember playing against
a lot of damage
a couple months ago, and I was surprised at how much Q Sheen damage did in trades.
It does. It you can, depending on I mean, you can crit off 2. Yeah, I think it's just off T-Force, and I don't remember what the other item is that I've been building lately. But like with just those 2, I was getting like 700 damage crits off Q, which is, I mean, that's
well, you
pretty
need a crit
good.
Item there.
Yeah, so. I don't remember what. I mean, it might just be a crit rune too. Who knows? But it hits really, really hard.
T-Force crits,
and you can,
doesn't
it?
it?
Not anymore.
I wasn't okay. They did change that. Yeah.
You can still roll through carries really, really easily with him. He hits really, really hard. Dom's been in a lot of games with me when I've played Yorick, and
I'm just glad you're not building tier on him anymore.
I don't do that.
After the rework, you were so like, no, I think tier.
I wanted to do it. Well, I think
really
it's just
bad.
because
Tier's just in a bad spot overall.
It's the feel good of knowing that you're already doing shred damage and having the infinite mana to never have to leave ever, and then your Q giving you health back, so you feel like you're just self-sustaining yourself, and there's nothing anybody can do about it because you never run out of mana. But the only mana item that you need is like Sheen and maybe a Frozen Heart if you need it.
Right, like you just go Glacial, or if you don't go T-Force. I mean, I think he's fine.
Something I was thinking about, like the reason he might not be meta is because he's not as you were saying with the Maiden, you have the option of going either you can use it to split push or use it to team fight. But a lot of those like things that would be good in a meta is when you can play it reactionary and say like, yes, I can do this based on what the enemy team does. But in York's case, it's a proactive thing. You either have to start your Maiden down for a split push or save it for a team fight, and the other team knows what you're doing with that. And then I would guess at higher elos or in the pro scene, that would be the direct counter, is that they would know, hey, Maiden is still up. We shouldn't wait for this team fight. Or they'd say, Yorick's top, check if he Maidens. If he does, we react to it as we would for like a Rift Herald. Do so, then you're good. And if not, I feel like it's very easy to counter with a smart team, even like just a higher elo team. I think that would be the main issue with Yorick.
You can kill Maiden pretty fast too, and just negate all of that as well. But I mean, in big team fights, people aren't always targeting Maiden. Like they barely.
Well, that's the thing is,
I couldn't tell you where Maiden is.
Well, the thing is, you either wait for it. You wait for the fight starts, and if they see Maiden, like if they know Maiden is available, they bait it and run away as soon as it comes in. They say, "Well, we'll wait for this to come down, whatever lane it comes down." And then you can. It's a very good, easy thing to play around if you know how it works. But if you don't, then you can get dumpstered by it in like lower elo. So if you're playing lower elo, then great. Like you could see that champion could be so good.
Well, he can be very abusive.
Who knows it.
He can be very abusive because, I mean, once you get Sheen, that's really the only damage item that you need in lane. You can get T-Force and just really make people's lives miserable. But between the self-sustain on Q and being able to spam it like Nasus Q, but it doing a ton of damage and just building up. If I find power in champions that people aren't used to playing against, and I'm gonna go out on a limb and saying people probably don't see Eoric that often. No. So when they play into it and you get 3 Graves on the ground and you wait to pop it when you know E's up and they're in a really, really good spot, to throw an E at them, and you get to slow on them, and you have 3 people, like 3 of your little ghouls smacking at somebody, and then you can get 2 Qs off in the trade, or maybe even like drop that W when they're slowed with E. You can really shove out and brutalize melee matchups.
Right.
But
I
you're also gonna get ganked a lot,
That's
and you're
the
not
thing.
mostly getting away, especially if you don't have W up.
If we're talking just strictly meta, the reason Yorick isn't meta, A, he's an immobile top laner who's not super tanky, and B, he's not blind pickable for the most part, because he does have some really horrendous matchups right now. I think Gnar being probably the biggest offender that you see a fair bit, but that's a big reason why he's not meta.
The range in the
Because when you look at meta top laners, a lot of them are either like super tanky, so like they just kind of go even or behind in matchups, but they'll scale up into the later game, or they're just very safe blind picks that don't have a ton of bad matchups, which is why we see a lot of Jace still. Gnar doesn't have a ton of meta bad matchups.
That's why I play Swain almost every single game.
Swain's got a lot of good lanes, and that kind of speaks to that point.
Actually, Gnar is apparently one of Yorick's better matchups. At least
I would
from
feel like
win
Gnar
rate
is a
standpoint.
decent matchup into it, just because his ranged harass,
And the shred.
on top of being able to build
No,
Frozen Mallet and
apparently
Titan.
Yorick beats his ass, but I couldn't tell
What
you
do I
why.
know? I
Really?
don't play either of those champions.
I haven't-
I mean, it mostly
I haven't
based on the
played
stats,
into
it
it.
looks mostly like the kind of damage-heavy fighters tend to be the ones who do really well against
Right,
Yorick.
I
and he
could
does
imagine
well
like-
against the
or
tankier
people
types.
that can just out-sustain the poke, like Vladimir.
Well, Vlad,
Yeah, Vlad.
Vlad's
actually,
just
he
not a
beat
good top
Vlad
laner right
according to
now in
this.
general, though. That's
I'm just looking at stats.
yeah.
I really can't speak to the actual playing of the matchups, but
Yeah.
this is kind of related, but I misheard Cheer earlier and went on a laughing spree because I thought he said Eoric, which I think would be a hilarious skin for Yorick, especially
Oh.
in the Halloween skin, and just a really sad like Winnie the Pooh character Yorick would be a great.
Who would be
great
Winnie the
skin.
Pooh? Who would be Winnie the Pooh then?
Volibear.
Or
Yeah,
Udyr?
actually, that one's pretty easy.
Volibear?
I would lose it. You know what? I would lose it if Udyr was running around with a barrel full of honey. But
mean,
if
it's
that's
also
the
easy
case,
for
if that's
Annie.
the case, we need Gragas because he could literally throw
Yeah,
honey pots.
there you go. You get Gragas.
Well, you also have Annie could be Christopher Robin with Tibbers being Winnie the Pooh pretty easily.
well, we kind of.
although I
Well,
don't
that's
know
just
how.
kind of Annie right now with her bear anyway.
Yeah, I'm just saying, like there's a lot of options, and this was stupid.
I
a lot
like
of
it.
options for copyright.
Moving
yes,
on.
definitely.
We can probably get one more question in. So John writes.
Sure,
Yeah, sure.
I tend to prefer engaged style champions like Leona, and I've been riding the Maokai support train. What other champion should I try, or should I just ride the Maokai support train out of bronze? My first counter question is, when did we get this question? Because Maokai hasn't been a support champion since he got reworked.
So it came
He has.
after
When
he
he
got
got- when he
nerfed.
He's not as
like,
good.
the
He's
he was-
nowhere near as good.
Yeah.
He was getting played a lot as a support right after the rework, and then he got
Because he
nerfed
E did a
because
ton
hey,
of
that was
damage.
bullshit. This question I do recall coming after all the nerfs and everything happened.
Even the most recent nerfs where they nerfed his E again.
No, it's an older question at this
Yeah.
point.
Because he's
If-
getting
alright.
an E nerf again.
If
Oh,
you're
yeah.
winning games, if it's not broke, don't fix it. Play
Yep.
it until you can't play it anymore. Like play it until it just stops working, and then you end up finding something else. It's not. It is smart to ask a question like this so that you have some backups for when it doesn't work anymore.
Mhm.
But I mean, if this is something you like doing and this is the playstyle you like, you roll with it. If you're winning, like, and you're trying to grind to another rank, winning is the fastest way to get there. So win more.
Right, like the biggest thing when people ask me, like, oh, could you look at my op.gg or whatever and take a look, see what I could be doing better? The most common answers I say are, why aren't you playing this champion more? And why aren't you warding more? And if you're winning, keep playing it until you don't win. Or you can take the other route and start learning the meta supports, which you're not going to win initially, but it's a learning process.
I'm a big believer in knowing how to play one of each type of support, and I tend to break it down in 3 different ways: one tank, one enchanter, and one mage. Janna's obviously my go-to right now, And if you're worried about her being picked or banned or something
Sona.
like that, Tarek or Sona, Nami, those are all. Actually, I think Nami is probably the best one to learn from because you don't have to be as you can be reactive with heals as opposed to having to really try to predict what the opponent's doing.
I just think Sona's easier to play
She's
though.
so much harder. She's so
Yeah.
much of a harder.
Bubble is like
Not-
a
like,
really hard skill
Sona's-
for Nami.
Sona is hit any of your first 3 buttons and then walk towards your teammates and give them the buff, and then don't get hit by stuff, and you're done.
Sona also has to put herself into really precarious position to be meaningful during lane, and
True.
especially if your teammate is not being responsive to that, you can really get punished for that quickly. And she doesn't have much HP. I think it's better now, but there was a stretch of time where minions had more HP than her. So yeah, I mean,
okay,
like,
Nami would be easier to hit, like to hit that W onto like an enemy or to yourself, or like to get the triple bounce. Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
That's so much easier for lane, but like past that point, like
I'm
bubble
talking
is
specifically for learning how to play enchanters. Like I think Nami is a better choice. If you don't like her playstyle specifically, move on to Janna, Sona, whoever else and everything. But like,
I actually
start out with Nami to figure out how to do.
I like that Nami suggestion because the ults are really similar between the two anyway. I mean, you're trading the frontline tank for backline. Fuck it, throw a wave at him.
Throw a wave at him.
Just tidal wave.
I would say that the thing that I played the other day was like coin Sona, which I'm fine with. I know that a lot of people still go with the spell thieves because they want to be a pokey support. And like you can play back and still be you can still build coin, you can still build all the support items and still be like a non-damagey Sona, but still be just as supporty. And as much as okay, Dom, I do agree on if you're trying to learn that role, I believe Nami would give you a much better idea of it. If you're trying to climb with that role and don't know anyone for that role yet, I would so support Sona if you're trying to make that push towards the end of the season. I wouldn't say try to pick up Nami now.
I'm not saying master Nami, but if you don't know how to play that type of champion, start out with Nami, get a feel for what your positioning is supposed to be like relative to the rest of your team and the opponent team for that matter, and then graduate to Sona, Janna, Tarek, whoever else along the way. Soraka. I mean, Soraka is a lot harder to play than she used to be. Like, you need to be really mindful of a lot of different stuff, and you just have to sort of dance in and out of the opponent's threat range to really be meaningful.
Coin Soraka.
The one thing that I've learned from like getting autofill to support occasionally, and I was a support player, so this isn't like new news, but I didn't play a lot of the enchanters until recently, is you don't need to always be doing something in lane. It feels weird if you're coming from like mid or top where you're always fighting and you want to be like, I want to be impactful right now. I haven't been impactful in, let me check, 3 minutes. What can I do? You don't need to do it, because if you keep putting yourself into those situations where you're like gonna get blitz hooked because you wanted to get a Soraka Q off, you're gonna have a bad time. And it's so much easier to just play like back, and you can influence the game very, very well if you throw off a ton of heals in a fight or throw some CC down to peel. Like it's so much better of a way of playing those champs than thinking I have to be like right up and hitting people with my Qs or something.
Yeah, I mean, playing a lot of the supports now is really about understanding where you need to be positioned relative to first your team and then the opponent team. And for the Jannas and Namis of the world, it's like you just hang back by the 80 carry. If somebody comes running at them, make sure that person can't get to the carry, and otherwise throw shields on your priority target and that type of stuff. If you're a tank, you have to be a lot closer. You have to be up towards the front and everything, and you need to be prepared to pounce on whoever is out of position.
Yeah. I think are we good, guys? I think that's probably gonna end it for us, unless we've got something. Was that helpful? I don't know if that was even a really helpful answer to that question at all.
No, I mean, initially.
Sean got to it right at the start and everything. If you found something that works, like, ride it until it stops working for you.
Yeah, I mean, you can like engage champs are all whatever.
I mean, it's different flavors of engage. Do you want to be a tank? Do you want to be a backline? What do you want to be? If you like playing a tank, then find more tanks that do exactly what it is that you like to do.
And I feel like
Well, that's just like
go
that's
ahead.
kind of what I was getting at. It's like I don't believe really in like doubling down on the same type of champion and everything, because really at a certain point, yes, the higher you go, Alistar and Leona do functionally different things, and it can be meaningful differences. But really, below gold, what is there really any big difference between Leona and Alistar?
Not
I
really.
mean,
Uh,
Alistar turret
Yeah, I
dies
mean, like
better.
you would have to get into a really nuanced answer in order to find meaningful differences between them.
Alistar has a
you know,
heal.
So, yeah,
if you're gonna say Alistar has better tower dive and low elo, I'm gonna like that seems it seems
Statistically,
great,
he
but I
does
feel like
when
it's
he's
never going to
6.
happen. Yeah, well, duh, but like no one like the amount of tower diving coordination is kind of out the window. I feel like.
but beyond that, like that's my point. Is like they're
Yeah.
so functionally similar that you don't need to know how to play both of them. Know how to play one of them and call that good enough, and learn how to play one of the other two types or both of the other two types, just so that you have one champion who can fit the needs of your comp if they stray away from needing a tank.
Dom is essentially telling you to be a well-rounded player.
I'm not saying know how to play 15 champions, but knowing how to play 3 champions is a reasonable ask.
Be a well-rounded player for your role.
Yep.
All right, I think that's gonna wrap it up for us tonight.
Yeah, that's episode 462. I don't think we have anything outro-ish to really even cover, but
Nope.
yeah, guys, that's
Patch
keep
Wednesday.
the questions coming. Please do keep. Oh, I guess we
We
have
love
Patch
them.
Wednesday. Sorry.
Patch
Don't
Wednesday.
keep the questions coming. We don't
No,
want
keep
them
them
until
coming.
No,
We'll get to
feel
them
free.
afterwards.
no,
Yeah,
keep
coming.
them coming, guys.
Feedback at
Feedback at Trinity Force Podcast. Do you want to say it together?
1,
Feedback.
2, 3. Feedback at Trinity.
Feedback at Trinity Force
Podcast.
Podcast.
That was awful. That was so bad.
That was great. If
Feedback
you guys
at
don't know what it is,
TrinityForcePodcast.com.
yeah, Jesus. Yeah, go do that, guys. Let us know, like, if especially stories from like what you want to know about climbing. Like, I
Right.
think that would be the best kind of questions to get right now, as long as we're keeping with that theme. But yeah, we will be back on Wednesday with a patch note episode, I believe, and we will talk to you guys then. See ya.
Yeah, see ya. Toodles.
Have a
See
good
ya.
one.